Welcome to the Rebuilding of Venezuela podcast. Business opportunities, the market, and the talent needed to make it happen. We bring you a dual perspective, the U.S. business lens and the inside view from Venezuela. Welcome to the Rebuilding of Venezuela podcast. Business opportunities, the market, and the talent needed to make it happen. I'm Alex Miranda, coming to you from Miami, Florida. And I'm joined by my partner, Ignacio, who's on the ground in Venezuela. Together, we bring you a dual perspective, the U.S. business lens and the inside view from Venezuela as this market begins to shift, reopen, and reposition itself on the global stage. Each week, we'll break down what's happening, what smart companies are doing, and where opportunity is emerging, with a special focus on the talent that will ultimately determine who wins. 2 nights ago, during the State of the Union, Venezuela was mentioned. That alone tells you something. When a country that's been economically sidelined for years starts getting mentioned at the highest levels of U.S. leadership, it signals that conversations are already happening. Capital is watching. Energy markets are watching. Infrastructure players are watching. But here's the real question. Who actually wins when a market like this begins to reopen? History tells us something very clear. It's not always the biggest companies. It's not always the ones with the most capital. It's the ones who position early, not recklessly, not emotionally, strategically. First movers don't necessarily fly in first. They prepare first. They build relationships. They map supply chains. They study regulatory environment. And most importantly, they think about talent before everyone else does. Because when markets reopen, capital moves fast, but workforce moves slower. And the companies that wait for certainty usually end up competing in a crowded, reactive environment. The companies that win are already building infrastructure quietly. They're hiring, they're researching, they're positioning. And today, we're going to talk about what first mover advantage actually means in a moment like this. Not for the major oil with automatic contracts, but for the mid-size operators, the suppliers, the service providers, the companies watching closely. When should we move? The better question might be, how should we position? Because the rebuild doesn't start on opening day. It starts long before that. And that's your Venezuela reconstruction update. So Ignacio, from your perspective inside Venezuela, what are you seeing on the ground right now that tells you this positioning phase has already begun? Because I know you're already starting to participate in some events. Things are happening in Venezuela. Things are flowing,
Exactly.
bro. Tell me.
For sure, Alex. Thank you for having this time to start this kind of podcast. I think it's really excited to be part of the reconstruction of my country, which I've been, on the mission with you to recruit professionals from Venezuela and connect them to work remotely with US based company. And that's been a really blessed for me. But Alex, what I'm seeing doesn't get captured in the headlines. The headlines talk about licenses, barrels, numbers, but what I'm seeing are much more subtle signals and much more revealing, so to speak. Okay. I think that in the last week, Venezuelan professionals who hasn't looked back at Venezuela in years are raising their hands, not publicly, maybe a little bit on LinkedIn, but in private conversation, in WhatsApp groups, in calls with friends, family, people like you and me, And to tell you the truth, engineers who left PDVSA 8, 10, 15 years ago, who today work at the biggest companies such as Shell, Weatherford, or even SLB are asking me for the past 2 weeks, what is happening? Is this the real time? Are there any opportunities? And But on the other note, on the other side of the face of the coin, I think I'm getting calls from companies in Houston, in other part of Texas and other states, that they're not telling me I want to hire tomorrow. They're saying something much more interesting. The headline for me, Alex, to tell you is that they want to understand what talent is available, because at the end of the day, everybody went to other countries because everybody knew that they had other opportunity once PDVSA went down. But that's what companies are starting to do. They're starting to do the diligence on the most important resource, which is going to be getting the right talent.
Well, I want to talk about
Alex,
that for a
but
second.
wait, Alex, the talent didn't disappear. It's
I
like
know.
dispersed. And right now it's signaling that it's ready to come back. And
Okay, that's what I was going
what's
to
getting
ask.
me excited.
So let's say the number is 8 million people that left Venezuela. I think that's the number that was thrown around. In your opinion, how many do you think are going to come back? How many think are excited to come back? Why would they come back?
Wow.
Would it just be for the money? Would it be because
No.
this is their culture? This is their homeland. They want to be part of the rebuild. What are you thinking?
I think that's the second, like the second perspective is the one that I'm hearing. I've been talking with Venezuelan that have been working for US oil and gas companies for the past 10 years in the United States. They have family in there already. But at the end of the day, they feel that they need to rebuild what they left behind. Venezuela lost more than 50,000 engineers in the last 20 years. And there's a lot that want to come back. But I know that there's a lot that they don't want to do. They don't want to, they don't want to do anything with Venezuela, because they already know that they have, a life already established in the US, and that's stability.
I think there's a couple of perspectives here. I think that there's Venezuelans that were born and grew up thinking, I want to move to the United States. Like, regardless of what's happening over there, they had a dream, right? The American dream. You see it on TVs and movies. I know for a fact so many Venezuelans that it was their dream to come to the United States. And guess what? They brought their talent to the oil and gas industry here in the United States. And their idea isn't actually to move back. Will they support? Will they travel back and forth? Will they be maybe one of the leaders of the departments in these companies that is going to do? Yes,
For
absolutely.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
So I think there's a segment of Venezuelans that are going to come back to Venezuela, or, I say go back. You would say come back, say go back to Venezuela. But I would say there's another whole segment that's going to stay. However, they're really excited to help on the rebuild. They've got their family here, but they're trying to figure out, how do I help? How do I be a part of this? Whether it's from there's opportunity. Look, some of these Venezuelans own engineering firms, companies here in the United States, and they're like, okay, I get to rebuild. I get to go back. I get to maybe they'll have a house in Margarita, but they have their connections. They get to rebuild connections with old friends and colleagues, and they're just really excited to do business with Venezuela. But there are some that they're going to move back. Literally, they were maybe professors over here or something over here, and they're like, I want to be boots on the ground. What does it look like over there, Ignacio, today, physically there? You went to a conference the other day. I want to know, because we've been talking about kind of mindset here in the United States of some people moving back. Tell me about the people that are already there. What are you seeing?
All right. I went to an event 2 days ago about the about how people are seeing the change that happened from January 3rd to February 26th and the rest of the year. And what the summary that I can give you, Alex, is that people are trying to prepare. For the past 20 years, we have been a professional community in businesses here in Venezuela that we are in a reactive mode. And I think starting on 2026, we're gonna start, seeing that businesses in Venezuela need to start preparing for what is coming. Because at the end of the day, Alex, competition is coming. Everyone is, contacting every here in Venezuela people that, hey, do you know if you can connect me with this person, with this person? They want to see if the Venezuelan community is prepared to what is coming, because at the end of the day, it's going to be very big.
What kind of companies did you see there? What kind of local companies are preparing themselves?
I mean, I didn't see logos companies. This was four very well-known speakers in Venezuela that wanted to give their impression for what's coming in the next 12 to 24 months. And the reality is that they show that inflation is very high. Still, there's a lot of changes that are coming, but that the biggest message was we need to prepare for what's coming. We need to have another mindset. Venezuela already changed, and talent needs to be lined up properly in each industry so that countries that are going to be investing here say, all right, Venezuelan people want to rebuild the country. Let's do it.
I hear on Instagram, I don't know how true this is. You've been telling me for a while, Alex,
Come on.
don't believe
Stop
everything.
seeing
But I can't help but to look on Instagram. You see people there. I saw one guy promoting that, real estate is really where the early move is at right now, because eventually people are going to need housing. Airbnb is going to come there.
That is true.
Tourism. So
Yeah.
if you've got a lot of money and you're seeing the housing prices are low right now, it's inevitable that the housing prices are going to go up, I would think, right?
They are going to be up, but there's something for the Venezuelan people that is it's funny, because my mom has been in the real estate business for the past 25 years. And she has telling me for the past month that everyone that is selling right now, they stop. Like, hey, don't keep selling my house. I want to see what is going on so that they can put the price up, because they think that Venezuela already changed. So the house worth the double, which is nonsense.
Well, that nonsense today, but I mean, there is some sense to it. It does make sense.
It is, but the change doesn't come from today.
But the real estate
not
people
that fast.
in the United States, there's people in the real estate game that are quick fix and flip, but there are people that play the long game. They're like, buy low, hold on to it, and I'm gonna wait. We're talking people with probably money, capital behind them.
Investing right now. Actually, I have a couple of friends that for the past 2 months they have a lot of money, and that's exactly what you're saying. They invest in a couple of houses on other states in Venezuela that are going to be key for the reconstruction of the oil and gas industry.
That's good. We should bring on a real estate person one day in the podcast, because I am sure a lot of people here would be highly interested, especially Venezuelans here would be highly interested in what is the real estate market looking like over there. We should absolutely bring in some kind of real estate professional. Maybe your mom would join us on the podcast.
Yeah, for
That'd
sure.
be awesome, man. So real estate is quietly getting active. I mean, maybe not even quietly. I think there's a lot of movement in real estate, but there's other industries that are quietly getting active. Obviously, you would think, gosh.
Obviously, the oil and field services, Alex, industry.
There's nothing quiet about that. That's getting very, very active. Where do you see some talent gaps? Are you noticing some talent gaps? Like there's people that are going to be needed that we just don't have in Venezuela.
I don't think so, Alex. I think that as you mentioned, people are going to be coming back to rebuild the country. And I think, we have been experiencing this for the past 8 years. Venezuelan professionals are very well educated, and I think that right now there's that hope that, okay, Venezuela is getting better. I don't need to get a remote job. Let's start finding these companies that are looking for professionals here in Venezuela. I think that I don't see gaps, Alex. That's
I
the whole
love
thing.
that. And I don't either. I actually see opportunity. And that's
Yes, for sure.
the anchor story that I wanted to talk about today as well. There's a oil and gas supplier here in Miami. They're a distributor of parts. So let's say the pipes, the valves, all the
Hmm.
things that you need to run a proper, oil and mining operation. They're here in Miami. They're actually our client. And what I loved his forward thinking mindset because he can't actually distribute to Venezuela yet, right? It's not,
Hmm.
but he's been distributing for the last 30 or 40 years to Guyana, Colombia, Mexico, where there's other mining and oil operations, but not Venezuela for the past 25 years. It's been off limits. But now, here's the cool part. He needed a business development person in Latin America. He already needed someone, all right? Someone who's going to
Yeah.
develop
Boots on the ground.
relationships with mining operations in Peru, oil operations in Guyana. Like he needed a person. Instead of hiring that person here in the United States, he hired the person in Venezuela. Okay, this is a former PDVSA employee. This person knew about procurement, knew about supplies. So it was someone who already understood his industry, but wasn't on the sales side, was on the procurement side. Now this
Hmm.
person flipped to the sales side, but here's the genius move. He did this last year. So
Wow.
yeah, he did this last year. So guess what? This person already knows this product line, has
Hmm.
already gone out and done business development. In fact, landed him his biggest client yet for purchase orders. And this person already understands the full cycle of going and getting on a mining operations list of vendors, which is a whole frigging mission. You got to turn in a whole
Hmm.
bunch of documents.
Yeah.
Cool. Then, okay, now we start getting bids. So now you got to fill out these bids, create the quotes, this person, and then now fulfill on all that. This person has learned the whole entire cycle, A to Z, and now account manages some of those businesses that they brought in. But here's the beautiful part. When Venezuela does open up again, guess what? He already
He's
has
going to be
boots
the
on the
first.
ground.
Exactly.
He's got people here. And now he's on to second person. Because now he's seeing, first of all, he's experienced that the Venezuelan talent is out of control. They're
So
just,
I have do you are you offering Vertify as the ally to find the right people? Because I have a lot
that's
of people here
exactly
that can
it.
do
Of
that.
course. Of course. That's what we do. We help you find people in
Yeah.
Venezuela so you can develop boots on the ground before things open up. The whole
Alex, and
point here.
guess what? I'm already calling my business relatives and friends, and we are going to be connecting professional with this type of companies that want to operate here in Venezuela. However, we are going to start connecting companies with companies, and
Oh,
then we're going to be in the middle,
oh,
you
that's
know,
nice.
giving them the professional that they need.
We have to. We have to. We're going to be coming at this
Yep.
from a lot of different angles. And this particular client of mine, now he gains Latin American coverage, right? But he's gaining future Venezuela positioning. And now he's experiencing what Venezuelan talent looks like. What we all know, anyone who's worked with Venezuelans, bro, for God's sake, they came to Miami and built cities. We're talking about people who came here and built cities. Doral, Weston. These are people who are highly intelligent and they're in our time zone and they're bilingual. Many of them came to United States universities. So these are people just, this client is experiencing what it's like to work with Venezuelan talent. And it's strategic because now he's getting a second person. Now this person will also learn. So when Venezuela opens up, he's got boots on the ground. But here's the beautiful part. is that because we're the employer of record, he doesn't have to go to Venezuela, set up an LLC, do all that stuff, open up an
Hmm.
office. He doesn't have to do that because he's a US company. We are a US company. So he's doing business with us. We're the employer of record of that person in Venezuela. So it's a remote, for him, it's a remote nearshore employee, right?
And
Who's doing
Alex,
business
remember
for.
that we have just do an alliance with one of my best friend's fathers, one of my father's best friends that is in Maracaibo, who has empty buildings that they can, get computers, internet, and start working.
It's going to be
So,
awesome. The first mover's advantage in Venezuela is going to
mhm,
be a strategic one. It's going to be one where and here's the thing. He's not taking a risk, Ignacio. Here's why. Because that team that he's developing in Venezuela, they have work to do with the other countries around Venezuela. So even if
mhm,
Venezuela doesn't open up for 2 years, let's say Venezuela doesn't open up until the elections happen. These people are still working for him. It's not like
right?
you're hiring people in Venezuela and then they're just sitting around waiting for the market to open. No, what I'm trying to express here by first mover's advantage is the people that you already needed. You already wanted to do business development in Latin America. You already needed an engineer in your company. You already needed a project manager. You already needed a CFO or an accountant. You were already looking for that. Why not hire that person instead of from Colombia or Costa Rica or even here in the United States, which will cost you an arm and a leg? Why not hire that person in Venezuela? Because if you hire them from Venezuela, then when it does open up, you have boots on the
Boots
ground.
on the ground.
That's the kind of
Hmm.
strategic thinking that I wanted to spotlight. So, Ignacio,
That is awesome, Alex.
what does talk to me about talent scouting? Because let's say someone listens to this and says, man, that's smart. This guy, he's hiring people in Venezuela to work for his company today so that they learn the product, the service, right? They learn so that when very smart. Okay,
Right,
I
right.
want to
This
find
is
someone.
awesome. This is awesome that you're basically questioning this because, as you know, obviously we have launched a LinkedIn campaign about getting to see the sense of all the Venezuelan professional, and we have created a landing page for the oil and gas industry. And for the past 2 weeks, my LinkedIn, Alex, is full of messages. Everyone wants to join in our database of professional to be, ready for opportunities. I think that the database is already on 800 professional, Alex, in just 2 weeks. Imagine that, people are ready to rebuild the country. People
Yeah,
want the opportunities,
yeah,
and they, at the end of the day, Alex, companies in the US need to think about something. The biggest bottleneck in Venezuela won't be the money, it will be the people, and they need
yeah,
to ally with with
yeah.
with a company like us,
And
so that
this
we can
isn't,
provide.
yeah, it's not to promote us. It's
I know
just, no, but the truth is this. You're a US company. How do you find talent in Venezuela?
exactly. Yeah,
Obviously, you need
ob-
help. You need
yeah,
a middleman in between that's going to find it because you don't have boots on the ground over there. If you were in the United States, what would you do? You would hire an executive search firm or a recruiting
yeah,
company, right? Well, we're
exactly.
that, but for Venezuela, we've been doing it since
For Venezuela,
2018.
yeah,
So we got about
yeah,
10,000 people in our database, 800 of them so far, because we weren't recruiting oil and gas before. Now
hmm,
it's like
hmm,
because we knew that they're going to be needed, we turned it up in 2026 after January 3rd.
exactly.
So we've
Yeah,
got more, but we've got a lot of other talent in the database. They're bilingual, they're professionals, right? But the beautiful part here is that they are already there. So you're building this local intelligence.
hmm,
And like you said, that's going to be a big bottleneck, Ignacio. And so the people that hire them today get to create what's called loyalty and bring them into their
mm,
culture because sure as the sun will rise, that person is going to get scouted by other companies. Period. End of story. Why? Because there's only a
Hmm.
few of them. So all of a sudden they're going to start getting offers from other people. It is what it is. But there is something to be said about the company that brought them in first, right? The company that showed
Yeah, 100%.
that first, and they were able to grab them into their culture, put them to do real good work, and give them leadership ability in Venezuela. I think that that's going to be huge. The ones who understand the workforce bottleneck that is about to happen and are slow to execute, they're going to pay a lot more for their talent, and they're going to wait a lot longer for that talent to open up than if you start thinking now. Let me hire some engineers now. Let me hire some field consultants now. People that
Yeah,
can
Alex,
already start to
for
look at
sure.
stuff like, let's say you have operations in Texas. They can already start working as remote workers for operations that you already have existing, so that when it opens up, you already have people there. That's, I think, the smartest part here. That's where
Alex,
advantage comes in.
as I told you, Alex, the bottleneck won't be money. Capital moves fast, but talent moves slower. So if you wait until operations start to think about your workforce, you're already behind. Period.
That's awesome. Hey, Ignacio, thank you so much for this. It's been
Thank you.
awesome. I look forward to doing many, many more podcasts together.
Yeah, me too.
Reconstruction of Venezuela podcast. My name's Alex Miranda. This is
Ignacio Thielen
Ignacio,
here from
and this is
Venezuela.
and we'll be excited to bring you more episodes in the future. Thank you so much for listening.